Hey YouTubers, and welcome back to my YouTube channel Master That English, where we understand, analyze and interpret the important concepts and texts that may be part of your English curriculum. Our topic for today is an essay, Self-Reliance, written by the American writer Ralph Waldo Emerson. So get your pens and notepads ready, cause here we go. Before we begin with the essay, let us get a brief insight about the circumstances in which the essay was written. To do that, we need to go back to the time America gained its independence, which is in the year 4th July 1776. After gaining independence, it's interesting to see how America established itself as a strong nation. This growth was initiated with the industrialization in North America, even in the South. Cotton agriculture flourished, and modern means of transportation started in the form of network of railways across the length and breadth of the country. As a consequence, trade flourished. With technology, there was a revolution in the printing press, leading to the publication of penny papers, which were cheap, affordable newspapers that helped to improve the mass communication throughout the country, consequently promoting education. However, social domains were still being ignored. These issues were most noticeable in the period before the Civil War, that is 1820 to 1860. The period is referred to as the antebellum period. Thus, this period initiated the stage of isms. And these isms helped us to understand the neglected spheres of social life that had to be improved. Now, which 19th century group has focused on all the essential isms of the antebellum period? That group was the transcendentalist group. What's interesting about this group is that this group initiated an era of reforms. So let us understand the contribution of each member, starting with Ralph Waldo Emerson, who was the pioneer of reformism. He is also referred to as the father of transcendentalism, and he is mostly referred as the sage of Concord. What's interesting about Ralph Waldo Emerson is that he was a Unitarian priest, so it is but natural that he could bring about a lot of modification in a belief that he was accustomed to for a very long time. But before I tell you the reforms he introduced in this belief of Unitarianism, it is important to understand what is Unitarianism. Unitarianism is a liberal religion that can be understood when compared to the ancient religion Catholicism, wherein Catholicism talks about the Trinity that consists of the Son, the Father, and the Holy Spirit. In Unitarianism, there is only one God, that is, Jesus Christ. In a layman's language, you can say that the belief in Catholicism is that your actions will be judged by God, and He will decide whether you go to hell or heaven. Whereas there is no good or bad individual in Unitarianism. We are all equal for Jesus Christ, so we should use reason to analyze the importance of religious texts. With that understanding of Unitarianism, let us better understand the reform Emerson brought about. Emerson believed that individual is more important than religion. So we need to focus on the transformation of individual by spiritually awakening him. Hence, Reformation for Emerson was all about trusting the voice of your conscience. He first introduced this concept to the world in his speech called Divinity School Address in Harvard Divinity School in the year 1841. The second ism that Transcendentalist group worked on was abolitionism. The Transcendentalist who worked on this ism was Henry David Thoreau, who promotes the idea of raising your voice against exploitation through his essay, Civil Disobedience. Do you know which great leader was influenced by Thoreau's essay? Well, it is our dear Bapu, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi or Mahatma Gandhi, who started the non-cooperation movement against the British in India, eventually leading the path to Purna Swaraj. This influence further rubbed on to the leader of the civil rights movement in America, that is Martin Luther King Jr. Remember his enigmatic speech, "I have a dream"? I have a dream that one day in the hills of Georgia, the sons of the former slaves and sons of the former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. The third ism that the Transcendentalist group worked on during the antebellum period was feminism. That was spearheaded by Margaret Fuller, a female member of the Transcendentalist group, who was advocating equal rights for women in her 19th century feminist text, Women of the 19th Century. The next member of the Transcendentalist group promoted an era of modernism in America. This was Walt Whitman, who adopted an unconstrained form of writing for his works by using free verse. That is, a poetic form with no rhyme scheme and meter in his collection of poems titled Leaves of Grass. The next question which should come to your mind is, what is transcendentalism? Emerson used the phrase first to describe transcendentalism, which is a little beyond. So the aim of transcendentalism is to move beyond the social construct of the society and focus on the inner self. This awakening of the inner self is often termed as the Renaissance spirit of the 19th century. The term was first coined by the writer F.O. Matheson in his work American Renaissance Art and Expression in the Age of Emerson and Whitman. Let us move on to our next section that focuses on the essay Self-Reliance by Ralph Waldo Emerson. To understand the essay better, we need to know a little about the life of Emerson. That brings us to our next question, which is, what were the influences that shaped Emerson? A series of tragic events in his early years forced Emerson to look for self-reliance within himself. The first tragedy struck when his father, a Unitarian priest, who died when Emerson was just 8 years old. Tragedy struck him a second time when his first wife died of tuberculosis. He also lost his son to scarlet fever. These personal losses made Emerson explore other domains in life. These influences were seen through British writers like S.T. Coleridge, where his work, Aids of Reflection, gave him better understanding about religion and the reality of life. Even Thomas Carlyle, the British historian, helped him to combine philosophy and theology with literature. On the other hand, Immanuel Kant, the German philosopher, taught him the importance of intuition, while William Wordsworth, the British Romantic poet, helped him to understand nature better. Thus, the company of these pioneers revolutionized Emerson greatly. He has done his graduation from Harvard University and then went to Harvard School of Divinity. After completing his education, he settled in Concord, where he established the Transcendentalist group. Now the question is that did the Transcendentalist group have a publication of their own? Yes, it was the Dial. And yes, Margaret Fuller was the first editor of this magazine. Later, this was followed by Emerson. Do you know the first essay Emerson wrote? Well, it was titled Nature, an anonymous publication in the year 1836. Now we begin with the essay on self-reliance by Emerson. Let us start with our very first question. How does Emerson start the essay? It's interesting to see this because Emerson uses motto. And these mottos, that are altogether 3 in number, state the major themes in the essay. Let us begin with the very first motto. The first motto has been taken from the work Satires written by the writer Perseus, and these lines translate into English as, "Do not seek yourself outside yourself." What do you mean by these lines? The meaning of the motto is that man is complete in himself. So you do not have to meditate elsewhere. The focus is on you, just like you sit and meditate and focus on your breath. That is the only thing that you need to focus on, yourself. The second motto has been taken from the work written by the Elizabethan writers Beaumont and Fletcher, and the work from which it is taken is Honest Man's Fortune. The lines are, "Man is his own star, and the soul that can perfect man commands all light, all influence, all fate. Nothing to him falls early or too late. Our acts, our angels are, or good or ill, are fatal shadows that walk by us still." These lines are indicative of another aspect in this essay, which is the internal strength is the voice of conscience. So one has to always focus on the voice that you're having from within. There is no need to look out for direction, as the true star is within you. And that star that is within you is going to direct you to the things that you want to achieve in life. The last motto is Emerson's own expression. "Cast the bantling on the rocks, suckle him with your she-wolf's teeth, wintered with the hawk and fox, power and speed be hands and feet." If you're from the 90s, I'm sure you can relate with this, because this expression definitely does relate with the tale of the jungle boy Mowgli from Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Book. This child was raised in the wild, suckled by the she-wolves, while wintered to the hawk and the foxes, and thus he is able to imbibe the power and speed of the animals that he was in proximity of. So the meaning of the last motto is, the external strength of the body is through adaptation. Let us move on to our next question, which is, how has Emerson exemplified the qualities of strong individuals? He has exemplified the qualities with the help of 3 strong examples from 3 different spheres of life. These include Moses, Plato, and John Milton. Where Moses has written the first 5 books of the Old Testament in Bible, Plato has written his book on philosophy called Republic, and John Milton has created an epic in literature called Paradise Lost. But the question is, what is common in the 3 individuals from 3 different fields? This common trait is their spontaneous impression, as all 3 gave importance to their inner voice, then the voice of the society. Let us look into each character and understand this. where Moses as a guide instills hope. The inner voice of Moses was the voice of God that enabled him to lead his people out of slavery to the promised land. On the other hand, Plato is a benefactor for the invention of new ideas. His inner voice helped him to invent or create the theory of forms. This theory helped to emphasize the importance of pure reason in life. Hence, one should not blindly follow the beliefs of the society. Lastly, Milton as a muse or guide shows the path of redemption. Despite his blindness, he was able to write an inspirational epic like Paradise Lost, wherein his work helped the mankind to understand the wrong act of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, thus providing humanity the knowledge of the consequences of wrong actions. That brings us to our next question, which is, how is a coward or ignorant man different from a great man? There are two chief characteristics of an ignorant man. The first is that an ignorant man is always trying to imitate others. Every youngster loves to follow their latest fashion trends of their favorite stars. But this imitation is suicide. But why? Because you lose your authentic self. The second characteristic that Emerson states is envy is ignorance. Most people feel jealous of others' progress, but the truth is that your ignorance is due to the lack of thirst for knowledge. So you will never feel jealous or envious of others if you are constantly working on yourself and competing with yourself. And that is why Emerson states that envy is ignorance. Now, according to Emerson, which age group is the most self-reliant and why? It is the younger age group. But why does he call them so? As their mind being whole. What does he mean by this line? That young child, his mind is whole because he's so occupied with his own creative inspiration and thoughts that you cannot make him do anything. He's so occupied with his own creativity. He will never listen to your stories. He will only listen to those stories that he feels are interesting, that meet his taste and thought process, which is the reason why they cannot be influenced by the dictates of adults. In fact, it is the adults who have to listen and give in to their demands. So this is why their mind is being called as whole. The next fact that Emerson talks about is that I is yet unconquered. The eyes are yet unconquered because, again, they have not understood the controlled lifestyle of the mature adults, which is the reason why this child is unaffected, unbiased, unbribable, and unaffrighted. He will do whatever he wants to do because he has not understood the human mature world till now, which is the reason why he appreciates this age group the most. Let us move on to our next question now, which is, why is the society against the belief of self-reliance? The society is against the belief of self-reliance because they have a desire for conformity. What is conformity? Conformity means following the rules and regulations constructed by the society. This conformity restricts self-reliance. That is the reason why conformity helps society to maintain control on individuals. And this control can be established with the help of two important components. The first is customs and the second is name. Let us first understand the first characteristic, which is the customs. What do we mean by customs? Customs are the past traditions and cultures that you have been practicing for a very long time. And these cultures, these traditions have been able to control the conscience of the individual. These customs have been passed on through history. If a person does not adhere to the customs and traditions of the society, then he may even be branded as a devil. Now, in these customs and traditions, there is a very important practice that we all follow no matter what be our religion, which is the act of praying. Emerson has also commented on the way and the manner in which you should pray. So that brings us to our next question, which is, how is society failing in the act of prayer? The biggest problem that the society has in this practice is that the society constantly keeps begging. And they are begging and asking for help mainly to achieve and promote aspects of self-interest. So what is the correct way to promote dedication to God? The correct way to do it is learn to give time to yourself by isolating yourself from the world, because the true God resides within you. But how do prayers in isolation benefit the individual? They benefit you in lot many ways, but most importantly, prayers that you do in solitude help you to resist temptation that have been constructed by the society. And they help you to promote spiritual energy within yourself. And because of this, you are able to promote honesty, which is the true representation of love for humanity and dedication to God. So that is the reason why Emerson states that be myself. This is how you are going to be a better human being. Emerson also has something to say regarding society's desire to explore and travel. That brings us to our next question. Why is Emerson against society's desire for travel? He's against this genuine behavior because the true inspiration again can only come from within. And if you want to trigger that inspiration, you have to do it by putting your body at rest. That is when your mind will start traveling. So keep yourself in a meditative position, in a still position, where your focus should only be your book and your body should be at rest. That is how you will explore more. By traveling, you are not going to gain anything. That is the reason why he describes travel as a fool's paradise. Because what you do is just look around. But the true inspiration is when you read these books. And then your mind starts exploring. It was only when Emerson started reading the books of varied people did he learn something. Travel was just an escape, but it was not at all providing him any enrichment. Enrichment only comes when you read things, explore things that are all provided in your books. And this is why Emerson states that inspiration can be productive when body is at rest, as that is the only time our mind travels. Now let us look at the second aspect about how conformity helps society to maintain control on individuals, that is, through name. What do you mean by name? Society uses hypocrisy to control the emotional sentiments of the individuals. And this is done by acts of philanthropy, by the established and the well-known organization. Thus, the society promotes such acts for appreciation and name. This has been further elaborated with the reference to William Shakespeare's play, The Taming of the Shrew, wherein the society teaches a simple individual like Christopher Sly for power-driven positions. And this can be noticed in the play, as the Duke tries to fool this poor man who is a drunkard by changing the clothes of this drunkard while he's asleep. So the moment he wakes up, he is made to believe that he is a duke. This act of fooling this poor man indicates that the society always aspires for power-driven positions. They are not interested in the story of a common man. They only want to hear the stories of kings and queens. This shows that by restricting the lifestyle of a common man, you do not let that simple man to know the kind of qualities and aspiration he holds within himself. Because the moment he does realize that, he can also make a change for himself and also for the society. Now, which metaphor does Emerson use for individuals who are easily controlled by society? He uses the metaphor of a parlor soldier. Why does he use this metaphor? Because such individuals avoid fight against fate. They lack inner strength, because of which they look like mannequins who seem to be like soldiers, but they are really having no functionality with which they can do something purposeful in their life. The act of repetition is a continuous cycle that society promotes. Emerson describes this continuous cycle as the hobgoblin of little minds, as they indulge in routine acts that lack innovation. In reality, such acts reflect the society's vulnerability, as it feels threatened by the self-reliant or the non-conformist individuals who have strong independent voices of their own. That brings us to our next question, which is, how are the great individuals different from the society? They are different from the society because of two chief characteristics. The first characteristic is that they accept change. In this regard, Emerson refers to the biblical character Joseph, who willingly accepted and adapted to all the changes around him. But the society doesn't prefer this attitude in an individual. The second characteristic is a great individual will always have innovative thoughts. In this regard, Emerson refers to many characters. The first is Socrates, the Greek philosopher, who is known for his innovative ideas. But how did society treat him? Well, believe it or not, Socrates was given poison because the society thought he was corrupting the youth with his innovative ideas. The second example is that of Jesus Christ, who was the Savior of the mankind. And how was he treated? Jesus Christ was crucified for showing the righteous path to humanity. Yet another innovative individual is Martin Luther. Martin Luther was a German monk who was excommunicated for starting the spirit of Reformation in Germany, where he spoke against the act of selling indulgences. On the other hand, Copernicus and Galileo were both against the teachings of the Church, as they supported the theory that the sun was at the center of the universe. And that doesn't end there. We also have Isaac Newton from the 18th century, where you notice that many of his colleagues in the Royal Society were jealous of Newton's innovative ideas and critiqued his theories. Hence, this shows that the society initially never promotes innovative ideas of individuals. The next aspect that you get to see is Why does Emerson describe the society metaphorically as a wave? Why? Because society always forgets its previous strength to acquire new strength. Look around you. Who doesn't have a cell phone today? These cell phones have brought the world in your palm, but they have also increased your dependence on them. The world would come to a standstill without them today. And that is exactly why Emerson calls the society a wave. Because every step of advancement makes the present day man forget the ancient skills learned by his ancestors. We do not feel the need to learn them. And that is the reason why society has been described as a wave. Now, the next question is, why does Emerson prefer nature over society? This is interesting because nature always focuses on the present. Emerson states, nature suffers nothing to remain in her kingdoms. That means nature will never compromise, unlike the society. It will accept the things for what they are today. It will never try to glorify about its past. Have you ever seen a rose saying, "You should have seen my mother, she was way prettier"? No. The rose will always glorify its present beauty. And that is what nature is teaching you. The second quality that nature teaches us is that nature is self-sufficing and self-relying soul. That means that no matter how adverse the conditions may look for that tree in front of you that is going through adverse weather calamities, it does not look for external support. It will stand up on its own without any help once the wind has stopped blowing. This is the reason why nature is always helpful to mankind, because it teaches mankind to focus and promote the primary wisdom that is your instinct. Which is why, in the words of Descartes, I think I am. You start thinking about your potential only when you are focusing on your instinctive drives. And nature helps you and facilitates you with this idea. Don't you forget that even the romantics were having the same inclination in them. Wordsworth did feel the creative inspiration when he saw the daffodils. This is the reason why nature is always facilitating your instinctive energy. And this energy will help you to think out of the box. As there will be nobody to control you, you will have freedom of your ideas. You will not mug and cram things the way society wants you to learn the traditions and the norms, the culture. No, there is no rote learning that the society always promotes. That you need to learn about the culture, you need to know about the tradition, you need to know about the practice. No, all this sort of knowledge that you are learning, mugging up, is the secondary wisdom. Somebody's tutoring you about all this information. You're not learning it on your own. Because the knowledge that you learn on your own is only from the drive within you. Which is why Emerson states, when a man lives with God, his voice shall be as sweet as the murmur of the brook and the rustle of the corn. And this is the reason why nature is the source for the medium by which man can improve his instinctive energy and come closer to God. So why does Emerson advocate private space? He advocates it, and he has described about this aspect with the example of a work written by Beaumont and Fletcher called Bonduca, in which the commander of a queen tells the queen about the true way of achieving victory in the battlefield. He says that his hidden meanings lies in our endeavors. Our valors are our best gods. That means that God only honors our dedication towards our work. Even in Hindu culture, in the epic Mahabharata, Lord Krishna has also stated that karma is dharma. With this, we come to the end of the essay Self-Reliance by Emerson. I hope it has taught you that success only comes to those who believe in themselves. So, dear viewers, if you like this effort, don't forget to like and subscribe. Join the family, for sharing is caring. Stay home, stay safe. This is me, Karishma, signing off for now. Take care.